Hi guys, it's Chantel with Wildberry Quilting, and today we are working on part 3 of the flag quilt. So let's go get started. So now we have our flags completed, and we are just going to take our G pieces and sew a strip of them along the side. Now we're not sewing it to all of our flags. I've pulled out 2 of them and set them off to the side, and the rest of these I'm going to sew the G pieces onto the right hand side. And there I go, my obligatory dropping of something. What did I even drop? Oh, the camera lens cap. That makes sense now. And just kind of scooch that fabric over underneath. So I think this flag quilt is actually going to come out really cute. Like I said before, I wasn't originally planning to sew the flag quilt just because I was like, well, I don't really need a flag quilt. But I'm happy that I did decide to sew it because I think it is going to be really cute. But even more than that, it's just been a really fun and pleasurable sew. You know how sometimes you start a project and maybe it's one that you were really excited about, but then it just isn't fun to sew. And you're struggling through it and you're like, oh man, why did I choose to do this? Well, the other quilt that I'm working on has been kind of behaving that way for me. And it was one that I was super excited about. And you guys haven't seen any of the videos from that yet because I still have lots of editing to do on them. I'm hoping this will be less editing because I'm just going to be putting it out there mostly as it is, since it's just going to be a sew with me instead of a sew along. But that other one, oh, it has just been one thing after another, and I keep making mistakes on it, but I feel like not all of them are completely my fault. Some of it is just very maybe confusingly worded, but that you know, nothing against the pattern designer, because part of it, you know, our brains all think differently. So somebody else, maybe they would look at that and think, oh, this makes great sense, and maybe they struggle with other patterns, and that one's the one that is easy for them. It just does not compute well in my brain. So I've been struggling and kind of limping along, trying to get it filmed and sewn and editing. It just seems like it's going to be such a chore. But this, on the other hand, you know, even though it wasn't one that I had originally planned for, and it's not a pattern that just calls out to me, it has been so much fun to sew. It's just been a joy. So how can I complain? And I don't want to sew that on that way. I want to sew it on this way, right? Yes. I almost sewed that on the wrong side. Wouldn't have been the end of the world because there's 2 of them that are going to get sewn on the other side. But then I have to go back and pull one of those ones to sew a strip on. So, like I said, not the end of the world. I just have to rearrange things. And I already set this out to where it's in a way that I think it'll work nicely and not have any color repeats on the same row. Although you certainly could do color repeats on the same row. I wanted it to be spread out as much as possible, and also not have repeated designs on the same row either. I guess I was just being a little bit, what's the word, obsessive about it. That's okay though. I think we can all be that way sometimes, right? But, you know. There we go. Push that under there. And I'm pretty sure this is going to end up being a quilt for my kids to cuddle up with on the couch during like movie night and stuff like that. They already have their own quilts, and a lot of times they'll bring those out, but then when they bring their quilt out, half the time they forget it in the living room, and then it becomes this thing where they have to get up 16 times before going to bed for various different things, and that just adds one more excuse to get out of bed when it's bedtime. So I don't think it would be a bad thing to have an extra quilt on the couch for some of the little ones to cuddle up with. Of course, they're more than welcome to cuddle up in the quilts that we use too, but you know how it is. Sometimes somebody wants their own one to cuddle up with. They don't want to have to share. They want to be in charge of every inch of it. And nobody better touch it. Because then everybody's going to hear about it. I'm making them sound bad. They're not really bad. They definitely have their moments, but I think all kids do. Oh my, what did I get on that? Something must have gotten near it with a crayon or something. I don't know. Almost looked like the charcoal kind of stuff that you get from the fireplace, like, or burnt wood or something, because it was black but kind of chalky. But we have not run the fireplace since I've had this out, I don't think. So I don't know that it could possibly be that. And it definitely wasn't dirt. It was too dark for that. Probably just like a crayon or something that got stray little crayon crumb that got away from somebody. No big deal. It was on the inside, and probably very little of that will show through, if any. I am sure my kids are going to more than put their mark on this thing, so I'm not worried about one little dust nugget that made its appearance. It will definitely have more than that wrong with it, probably in the first week. As soon as I get done with all of the quilting and binding and everything for this one, it'll go in the washing machine to help fluff it up, and then it'll go out on the couch. Speaking of binding, of batting, I need to get some more of that soon. So now the last two G strips are going to go to the right hand side on two of our pinwheels. And then we can start sewing all of these together. which I am very excited for. I think this quilt has come together pretty quickly. My little scrap piece of fabric there. And there we go. Make sure I keep everything lined up here. There we go. I wonder, I bet I can find the perfect tag quilt label for this quilt from my Sweetwater label subscription. I mean, we've got Sweetwater fabrics, so it only seems right to use one of my Sweetwater labels for it. Alright, I'm back. Everything is pressed, and I am just sewing these flags together the way that I have laid them out. And this part is going to be a lot of running back and forth between my cutting table. Well, by cutting table, I mean kitchen table. Because I have everything laid out there. And if I move too many of them at once, then I won't be able to know which ones are supposed to go where. So I don't want to get them mixed up. And the easiest way for me to do that is just to run in there and grab a couple, like grab one row basically, since there's only 4 things in a row, and stitch them together, and then run in there and grab some more. This is pretty much always how I do it when I'm putting together rows like this, where I want them to be very specific placement. So I'm just sewing these flags together and the pinwheels together 2 by 2 in their row, and then I'll go back through and I'll stitch those sets of 2 together to complete that row, which I don't know if that makes sense just hearing it, but hopefully it does. And if it doesn't, stay tuned, because you will get to see it firsthand. You will get to see my example. There we go. I think that would be one thing that would be really nice about having a larger sewing room, is being able to, well, one, have a dedicated cutting table, cutting space, and 2, having enough room for a design wall. That way you can just lay everything out how you want it and pull it down piece by piece, rather than trying to scrunch it all up onto your kitchen table or something, because a lot of times it doesn't fit. Even for a small quilt like this, it doesn't really fit on my kitchen table. At least not with the cutting mat on there too, so it's kind of hard. But one day I'll have a nice big cutting, or well, nice big cutting table, but nice big sewing room. Honestly though, I do feel blessed just to have a sewing room at all. I know a lot of people don't, and there have been times when I didn't. In fact, I didn't start out with one, and even if my sewing room is the size of a closet, a walk-in closet, or pantry or whatever, that's still a blessing. I'm grateful for it. So I can't imagine trying to do this where, well, I can imagine it because I've done it before, but not being able to run a YouTube channel and everything else. And of course, you're very restricted on what you can have as part of your stash when you have such a small space too. All right, now our rows are getting nice and long, and we are just finishing with joining them. And this is going so quickly. There we go. And this is our second row. Make sure all of our fabric is over enough there. And there we go. And that's the end of our second row. And this is our third row. So the other day I actually ended up getting on Reddit, which I don't get on there very often, but every once in a while I will, just to kind of take a look at different creative things like cross-stitching and quilting. And then they started sending me emails every day recommending different threads and different stories and topics and stuff. And a lot of times I'm not interested in what they're sending me. But there was one that caught my eye, and it was something like Glitch in the Matrix or something. And it's interesting because they have a whole bunch of different things that you've never looked into before that they start sending you suggestions to read. So of those topics that were randomly suggested to me, the Glitch in the Matrix stories was, there was one of those, and it was really an interesting story, and it got me wanting to share my own Glitch in the Matrix story, because I have a pretty trippy one that really threw me for a loop when it happened. And I ended up sharing my story on there. But now, since I did that, I keep getting lots and lots of requests for people to narrate my story on YouTube. And tons of people are coming over and are sending me messages on Reddit. It's like every few days I get a request of somebody to narrate the story, which of course I let them do because, it doesn't bother me any. It's not like it's something that I wrote that I'm attached to and I want to, I don't know, turn into a book and sell or anything. It was just my personal experience, and if somebody wants to share that, I'm fine with that. But it's kind of got me thinking, like, maybe I told you guys some of the different spooky stories that I've had happen to me on other Sew With Me's. And it's kind of got me wondering if I should tell you guys that story on a spooky Sew With Me. The main reason why I haven't shared that story on here is really because while it's a really interesting story, it's also sad, and it does involve other people who, it involves somebody not being here anymore. And I don't have any ties to their family. And I wouldn't want to, of course I would not give the names, but I'm just concerned that somehow it could be figured out and who I was talking about. And I would just feel horrible if it ended up getting back to the surviving family and caused any pain for them because it brought up sad memories of losing somebody that they cared about. And that's the main reason why I really haven't shared it on here, is because, I guess I felt like on Reddit it was less likely to be tracked down and figured out. Whereas if I share it on here, you guys have, you have my name, you know who I am. So if you really wanted to, you could probably figure out where this happened and who it was. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it's too big of a risk to share and it might hurt somebody? Or do you think that nobody would really be able to figure it out and I should share it? Because it's just so strange. I had to share it on Reddit because I needed to get it out. I needed to tell people about it because it just was one of those things where it made such a big deal to me. I mean, hopefully you know what I mean about how you experience something that's just so much that you have to share it with other people. Like, you have to share it with somebody else and get it out. And I mean, obviously my husband knows about it, and my dad ended up finding out about it because I was talking to him about this particular incident, and it actually continued. Like, more stuff happened about this when I was discussing it with my dad, or I found out more, I guess. But in any case, it was just so weird. I wanted to talk to other people who kind of had similar experiences, I guess is what it is. And, it was interesting to see that while my exact story wasn't, something that somebody else had, they had things very similar happen. And it's just crazy. Like, some of this stuff, there's just no explanation for it. But let me know if you think that it's something that I should continue to just leave out there on Reddit and not share here, or if you think it'd be okay. Like I said, my main concern is I just wouldn't ever want to hurt anybody or cause anybody more pain. It's unlikely they probably ever would end up finding it anyways, but still. People online can sometimes go a little crazy trying to track people down and everything like that, and I wouldn't want that to happen. Alright, so now I have my pieces for my border, and I'm going to be attaching those together. So there was one part I didn't show you, and that was just where I was lengthening these strips by attaching them. But I'm sure you guys understand how to do that. That wasn't like any big piece. And I figured, you know, just sewing together the binding parts is going to take long enough. Or not binding, but the, oh my gosh, border pieces. Cannot think. So, but yeah, they just needed to be like 50 inches long or something like that. So obviously that's more than the width of fabric. So I had to sew them end to end. I did not bother pressing that or anything though, because I just don't think it was necessary. And I also didn't bother trimming it down to the 50 or whatever inches it was supposed to be, because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to prep them like this and then sew it to the sides of the quilt. And that way, just in case anything happens to be minutely bigger or smaller, then it won't matter. And I think I need more bobbin thread. So I'll be back in a minute. Alright, I'm back with a fresh bobbin. I shouldn't have to change that again until halfway through quilting. Probably less than halfway through it. I'm sure I'll have to change it again at some point, much sooner than that. And I've got another one of these for the other side that I've got stitched together, and I don't know why I cut that thread. I keep doing that. It's like I'm getting ready to go press it or something, so I just snip it and then realize, well, I still have the other strip to do. Normally I like to leave it all there so I don't have to use another piece of feeder fabric. Although in fairness, I use my feeder fabric over and over and over again, so until it's just a hairy, straggly mess of threads. And then I grab a new piece, and that's not been any trouble because I just use the pieces that are really too small to be used for anything else. Like a lot of times when I'm doing a quilt and after you've gotten done with all of the quilting and everything, and you have to go through and trim the batting and the excess backing fabric, I will then cut that down to where I can save as much as I possibly can, cut it into like 2.5 inch strips or something, and 4 or 5 inch squares, depending on how big of pieces are left. And then I will take whatever's left that couldn't be cut into 2.5 inch strips and rough chop that up to where I can use it for, oh no! Oh, that's going to be a lot of picking. Alright, I got a lot of seam ripping to do. No, I don't. I'm going to fix this an easier way. But let me show you a trick. So, talking more than you're paying attention, you can fix this. Instead of seam ripping all of that, I'm just going to seam rip this. And then I can sew it to where it's like this, and this is the outside now, instead of it being the inside. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me make sure that I demonstrate for you though, because this is a good opportunity to really show something like that. I am, however, going to probably speed up the seam ripping process for you so that you don't have to sit here and watch me pick a seam, because who wants to see that, right? Me trying to seam rip on camera. Oh my gosh, this looks terrible. You're gonna be sitting here going, what are you doing? Because I promise I normally don't look this crazy trying to seam rip. But okay, so it was sewn together like this. Now instead of putting it back under there like that, I am going to turn that around and sew it together like this. And just to make sure, yep, that will be correct. So let me do that real quick, and then I can pick back up where I was at. Man, I was worried for a second there. I was thinking, oh, that's going to be a lot of seam ripping. I'm so glad I thought to do it this way instead. And what a great way to be able to show you guys a trick to not, to save yourselves a little bit of time, because I am sure we have all been there before where we have just done something like that. And it may not always work. Like, for example, if you were sewing together 2 prints, that's not going to work. But it being a solid fabric, I was able to get away with it. And to be quite honest with you, it would be a lot less likely to happen with 2 prints, because you would definitely see which way is the right size with 2 prints. So really it's more of a solid fabric kind of a problem. Or possibly batiks. You might run into that with batiks sometimes too, because the 2 sides of batiks can look very similar. And I think you could probably get away with the same trick with batiks as well. Okay, so now I'm just putting these borders onto the side of the quilt. Well, I'll put it onto both sides, but you know what I'm saying. And again, I left these side borders longer. I just cut them in half rather than, after I sewed the 3 strips together, I just cut them in half instead of cutting them down to the 50 or whatever inches that they were supposed to be. And that way it just makes it a little bit easier for me when I am applying them. I can start it out a little bit past, and then I can end a little bit past and trim off the extra. Hopefully the rest of the quilt isn't getting up in your way where you can't see. Trying to make sure that it doesn't. I started filming the pressing video with this fabric, and then I didn't continue as I went through and pressed stuff. But I don't even know what was going on. Maybe the kids were in the house and in the other room or something, and I didn't want to do it while they were being rowdy, or maybe I just forgot. I don't remember. I forget. But when I do finish doing that video, it may end up being a compilation of different fabrics to show my techniques, because I started with these fabrics and I don't have any more of these fabrics to use on something else, so yeah. Speaking of these fabrics, I actually did not have the border fabric that they required. I forget how much it said that you needed of it. It was like maybe 3/4 of a yard or something. And it is supposed to look like this. It's like a, there you go. That's probably a better picture of it. So it's 5/8 of a yard that we needed of it. And it's like a red gingham. Well, I didn't have any of their one anyways. And I was sitting there looking through my fabrics, through my stash, thinking, I don't really want to buy fabric to do this. I want to use something I already have. I was just sitting there looking at it all going, oh my gosh, how can I not have anything in my stash that would work for a border for this fabric, for this quilt? And it's like, no matter how hard I looked, I could not see anything in there that would work for it. And I'm thinking, I don't want to buy fabric for this. So I actually called my husband in. I was like, hey, honey, I need your help. Now, my husband is not a quilty or fabric or crafty guy at all. Like, well, I mean, he can draw, but he hasn't in years. But that's about it. He does not get into any of this stuff. He supports me entirely in it, but he has no interest in it. So I was really, that should tell you how out of options I was, that I was trying to call him in and see if he could see anything that maybe I was overlooking. And he looks for a couple minutes and then he points up onto the shelf. He's like, what about that one? And I thought he was pointing at this red gingham fabric, this kind of rusty red color one. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's it. That's perfect. That's exactly what I needed. That's even like, it's almost exactly what's in the picture. It's perfect. And then he's like, oh, I was actually pointing at that other one. He was pointing at some entirely different fabric that I think it might have even been like a tulip pink fabric or something. I don't remember. It was not this one though. And I was like, oh, well, I think this one will work. Thank you. So I thanked him profusely for accidentally finding the perfect fabric because I would not have found it in there without him. I was completely overlooking it somehow. And even though all my fabric is like, well, all my quilting cotton is like stacked up nicely, for some reason I was just overlooking it. But I am glad that I asked him for his help. So let that be a lesson to you all. If ever you're looking in your stuff and you're like, I don't have anything that will work with this, maybe get a second pair of eyes on it. See if somebody else can see something that you don't see, because it might be there staring you in the face and you've blinded yourself to it. You can't see the forest through the trees. All right, now I'm going to go trim all of this up. So now I have the top and the bottom border, and I have the rest of these little guys that we need, these little hourglasses. And I'm just going to sew them to the sides of my borders like this. And I'm going to sew them one on either side. Let's use a piece of leader fabric. I am so excited to see how this quilt comes out, because I'm actually really liking it now that the borders are going on. I think it's looking awesome. I've got the side borders on already. Just got to finish up these top and bottom pieces, and I think this is going to look so cute. It's going to be very summery looking, I think. Even though it's supposed to be spring flags, I definitely read more summer from this. at least in my humble opinion. All right, so that's them on one of them. And here's the other one. And let's see, just like this. All right, so here's the last one. Oh yeah, that's lining up a lot better now. Okay, now we can put these on the top. Well, we've got to press them and then we can put them on the top and bottom of our quilt. All right, guys, we are down to the last 2 border pieces that we're putting on, and then this quilt will be all done. And I cannot tell you how surprised I am at how quickly this quilt came together. I mean, I knew it wasn't going to be a very complicated quilt, but this thing has just flown together. Maybe it's because I've been lately working on very complicated quilts. So doing one that has just come together so quickly and easily has made it that much easier feeling. I will tell you, this has been a great palette cleanser though. It is so nice to just be able to stitch on something that does not require a math degree to be able to get through. It's just nice and easy, mindless. Not completely mindless, but you know, laid back. That's probably a great way to describe it. Just nice, laid back sewing. Easy going. Our next sew sampler box is coming very soon. I don't know whether it'll be here before or after I get this video edited, but I am very excited to see what is in that box and what that quilt pattern will be like. I'm thinking, I don't know, I'm just excited for it. I'm thinking that maybe I might end up doing that one too if it's another simple quilt like this. That would be a lot of fun to just have as a leisure sew going on the side while I'm, oops, that piece got away from me, while I'm working on more complicated things. Make sure I got that right because that fabric kind of went wonky on me. I think it's fine. All right, on to the other edge. Our final seam. And I think that I'm going to need to get batting for this because I have pretty much exhausted all of my reserves of batting. I had used up the ones that, the cuts of batting that I had, and then I had like little scrap pieces of batting, and I had enough of those that I could sew them together and make a new batting, which was awesome because I did not overlap any of the batting, so it wasn't like there were any ridges or anything in it. Nobody will ever know that the inside of that quilt is mixed pieces of batting or like different scrap pieces of batting sewn together because of how I sewed them all up. And that one is going to be, well, that one I did not end up recording all of, so that is not a video. But I ended up running most of my batting out doing that, and then I just had little cuts like that I couldn't even turn into that. So I used up most of that extra batting of the smaller cuts, littler, that's not a word, of the smaller cuts, making project bags. And now I'm at a point where that mound of batting scraps I had is gone. I've got a few already cut, ready to be project bags, and I think that's pretty much it. So I really need to order new batting. I've already got a twin size coming in the mail for this, which, by the way, can we just say for a minute, how ridiculous is it that you can't buy a throw size batting? Throw size battings come in 60 inches, okay? They're like, the largest side of them is 60 inches. And a lot of throw size quilts are like 62 or 64 inches. And then the next size up of batting from that is twin, which is like 70 something inches. Can we just say for a minute, why is that? Why can't we have our throw batting be like 65 inches? I think that would be a good number to have for throw batting. And I can't even say that it's, that the twin one is perfect for twin quilts, because a lot of times you need like an inch more on that too. So what's the deal, batting companies? Let's up our game a little bit. I can't be the only person running into that problem. All right, this is all done. I just need to go press it, and then I can show you what it looks like. All right, guys, so this is the finished flag quilt, and the wind is trying to blow it like it's a flag. I think it came out really good though, and I hope you can see it. It's not all bunched up on me. There we go. I think you might be able to see it better like that. All right, thanks so much for joining me. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.